All right, so this program is called Game Stats, and this one's going to look a little bit different. We'll actually this will be the first introduction to passing variables into other methods. You will not be responsible for this on the Chapter 3 quiz or test. Your quiz or test will look more like the Char class or word game demonstration that I gave, but I figure I'm going to introduce this here. So a few things will look a little bit different. It says create a program that will ask the user to enter and display the following game stat variables. So these are your variables. So score, lives, aliens killed, those are probably going to be ints. Play again is going to be a char. So a Y for yes and an N for no. Shields up is going to be a Boolean, true or false. And engine temperature, that's probably going to be, let's make this one a double, okay? So properly declare each variable with proper data types, initialize each variable in the class constructor, and display a string representation. Okay, so I actually have this written out already somewhere, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to say file, new project, and I'm going to call this one main game stats, main game stats, and I'll call this one game stats. Let's see this opening. Main. Well, this is the one I actually created. So I may keep this one open just if I want to copy and paste, but I figure it's probably a good idea to create these from scratch so you guys can see what I'm doing and follow along. So I'm creating the game stats class. So let me see here. Where did that go? I'm going to drag this over. Yeah, I will close that. And I apologize. This is okay. I'm going to clean it up a little bit and make that a little bit bigger, close that. All right, cool. So what you guys are used to is something that looks a bit like this. And let me just read this. What does this say? Game stats. Properly declare each variable with the proper data types. Initialize each variable in the class's constructor. So we haven't written a constructor yet. So what you guys are used to is we're using the skeleton, so we would say game stats, my game stats equals new game stats, and then we would say, okay, come on, new game stats, and then our my game stats object would call the display game stats method, okay? So you guys are kind of used to something like this, all right? Well, now we're going to get into, we're not just going to hard code, with this, we hard coded, I call that hard coding, where I assign my variable to a name, and then once it can't change when you run the program. It's always going to display, the name's always going to display Mike Seeley. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do something dynamic, and this is really more the next chapter material. But I am going to create, so inside here I'm going to say import java.util.scanner. Okay, and so that's a capital S. And so I'll do the same thing up here. I'll say scanner, my scanner equals new scanner system.in. And so what I'm doing here is I've got my scanner class, and I create an object from the scanner class, and then we're going to allow for the user to input information. So instead of hard coding these variables, you guys as users will be able to type whatever you want into the variables, all right? So I'm going to do system.out.println, and I'm just going to kind of look at these. So the score, I'm going to ask the user to enter the score. So please enter the score, and then I would say int score equals my scanner dot next and capital INT. So the my scanner object gets to call this method called nextInt. What this nextInt does is it stores the integer variable that you type into here, okay? So I'm going to delete that for a second, and then I'm going to display the score for you so you can see that happening. Okay, so if I run this right now, the nextInt method, please enter your score. So I'll click right here, and the nextInt method, if I type in 999 and then press enter, 999 gets stored into this score variable, and now it just displays on this line. Okay, so that allows me to enter in information. All right. So then we'll do this on basically all of these. And this is where I think I'm going to copy and paste for you, and I'll be able to point out and walk through this instead of just sitting here typing and creating an hour-long video. So cancel. Let's see, I don't want to screw things up too much. Oh wow, it stints. Yeah, okay. So let's do this. So right here, Control C. Let's see if it's going to do this. I might not be able to. Okay, here we go. And I need to do a lowercase s because that's how I created it here. So let's kind of walk through now. And you guys are probably going to have to pause each time and see what's happening, okay? So I created this please enter the score. And then you create a score variable and allow the user to type in an integer into it. This one is going to be similar. It says please enter the number of lives you have. So I've got a lives variable and nextInt. So basically like score, only just with lives. Same with aliens killed. Please enter the number of aliens killed. It gets a little bit different when we're dealing with a char though. Would you like to play again Y for yes or N for no? So a char is just a single character, so it can only store a single character in there. So in order to do that, my scanner has to call the next method, which allows you to enter in a string, so you could type whatever you want. But what it's going to do is the charAt method. So this is an object which calls this method, which is calling this method. So this allows you to enter in a string, but this forces it to only take the very first character in this string. So the character at position 0, it's going to strip off. So if you did type in yes or no, it would take the Y and store it in here, or it would take the no, the N in no, and it would store it in play again. So that's how you would enter in a character. Okay. Next up are the shields up. So shields up is a Boolean. So then the my scanner can call a nextBoolean. Okay. Again, notice nextInt, nextBoolean. This one's nextDouble. There's not a nextChar, so you have to go back and do it like this. Okay. So this would allow the user to enter true or false into the shields up variable. And then finally I made this one a double. So what is the engine temperature? And then we get a double right here, okay? So that would be how you would enter all your variables. And I could display them again, but I already demonstrated that. If you want to, you can say system.out.println, and you could say engine temp in quotes plus like the engine temp variable. Now let's do this. We got to call our constructor. So right here, I'm going to do this. Well, I'm not going to do that, sorry. I already did create this. Now, I've told you guys before that this is a constructor, and it's actually a method. All methods have opening and closing parentheses afterwards, but I've never passed anything to it. So this is going to be the first time we're going to pass information to a different file, okay? So we got score, lives, aliens killed, play again, and shields up. And I am going to just copy and paste that there. And finally, I'm going to copy that engine temp. Alright, so this looks kind of funky. Now watch what I'm going to do. Let's do this. Let's go to game stat. So there's an error here. We're passing this into the game stat method, alright? So right here, your game stat method is just public game stats. Okay, it's a constructor because when your object is constructed, you can initialize certain variables, okay? So you're constructing your object, all right? So the constructor, and you don't always have a constructor, and that's why we haven't done it yet, but sometimes you do have a constructor, and the constructor is a special type of method that only gets called one time when your object gets created. Okay, you can't call GameStats ever again for this object. You can create a different object and call GameStats, but you can only do it once. Okay, so inside here, I pass these variables in, so I have to accept them in here. Okay, there's a problem though. The minute that they get accepted, they're not initialized as data types, so I need to initialize them. So int. Let's see here, this one's a char, and we've got a boolean, and we've got a double. Okay, so see here, that goes away. So what I tell kids is once you pass a variable in, so these are two separate files, main game stats and game stats. One way to cut down on issues is that each class should know its own variables. Okay, so this class knows score, lives, aliens kill, play again, shields up, engine temp. Okay, this is going to know a different set of variables. These get passed in, but the minute they get passed in, what I do is I say my score is equal to score. My lives is equal to lives. My aliens killed is equal to aliens killed. And then I gotta put a semicolon there. Now I've got errors, and I'll show you why in a minute. My play again equals play again. My shields up equals shields up. And my engine temp is equal to engine temp. Okay, so there's errors there. So before you can use any variable, you saw it up here when score got passed in, you actually had to give it a data type. Once you give it a data type, it's fine. So up here, these variables need to be defined with their data type. So I'll say int my score, and see, now you can see it working, the error goes away. So my lives, my aliens killed, And I'm going to put a semicolon because those are the only ints that I have. All right. So give it a second. My computer kind of slowing down. Please respond. I think what I'm going to do is close this stuff. Maybe help speed it up a little bit. Let's see here. Okay, cool. So then we've got char, my play again. We've got Boolean, my shields up. And no, it's again, I gotta spell things right. And then double my engine temp. Okay, so this would initialize my variables here. And now what I can do is, well, there's going to be two different ways to do this, okay? I'll show you this way, both ways, okay? So display game stats. So that's where we've got public void display game stats. All right, so let me see this real quick because I think I created both of them here, and I'll copy and paste and then go through this with you. All right, so I'm going to copy this. Copy. All right, so paste. So you guys are kind of used to this by now. You guys watched the games or the word game program, okay? But I am going to add something in. So my let's do this. Copy and paste that there. All right, so then what happens, what you have, is you have your object call your method display game stats, and because I typed everything in, I passed it in here, I then initialize my variables right there. All I'm doing is just displaying my information here. So let's do this. So my score, let's say it's 100, number of lives 3, aliens killed 9,999. Yes, I'd like to play again. Our shields up. We'll say true. Actually, let's say false. And the engine temp is 199.99. Okay. So then my variables get initialized in here, and then I can display the information. So I do have, and then you can kind of compare. So I entered 100. 100's right here. I entered 3 for lives. Lives are 3. Aliens killed, 999, 9999. And do you want to play again? Yes. I want to play again. Yes. Are your shields up? False. It's false. And then engine temp, 199.99. So that all works. But the program asks you to do a toString method. So I'm going to show you how to display. So just display a string representation of the object in a toString method. So let's figure that out. So it's not going to be this. What it will be is a system.out.println, and it wants me to display a string representation of my object. So my object is my game stats, and so I display that, okay? But it's not going to display anything yet because I haven't created my public string toString. Okay, a toString method is a special type of method, and let me show you what it does. I'm going to copy and paste here. I am going to do something called, so let's see here, copy that. So you guys are kind of used to this right here, right? Void, where you basically have like a mutator method. I'm gonna get rid of this. We're going to do something called an accessor method. An accessor method doesn't have the word void in it, and it's returning information. So now this is commented out. It is not being called here, okay? So, and you can see I'll even put something in here a little bit different. Well, it should be different. Your score is, and up here it's just score. So what this does, so you guys would be maybe used to this by now. So dot toString. Okay, so what this is doing is it's calling the toString method, which is right here. Okay, so it's returning your score is and then whatever I type in. Okay, so it's returning all this information into a string literal, and it's displaying it right here. So if I run this, again, I can type in my score is 10, my lives are 1, aliens killed, let's say 15. Do I want to play again? No. Shields up, true. Engine temp 99.99. Okay, your score is 10, number of lives 1, aliens killed. Okay, so that all works. What's interesting is Java does stuff that, again, programmers are super efficient and they don't like typing. So what Java has done is it's created these things so you actually don't even have to call toString. What you do is you display your object, and then because you're displaying your object, it's going, all right, I need a string representation of my object, so it automatically calls the toString for you. That's a little bit funky. It's not that bad if your object calls .toString, because you just go to the toString method and see what it's displaying. Or, sorry, not displaying, it's actually returning it back. It's taking all this information and it's returning it back into right here. But with toString, you don't even need to call the toString method itself. Just by displaying the object, that's what it's going to do. So if I do, my score is 3, my lives are 2, I killed 1 alien, yes, I'll play again, shields up, true, and then engine temp 45.5 degrees. It's smart enough to call that toString method and return the information. Okay, so again, none of this stuff is code that you're going to need to know how to do when you do your quiz and test for this unit. It's actually for the next unit, but I figured I'd give you a flavor of what to look for. Okay, so that's the end of this video.